What's going on, guys? This is Redline here, bringing you guys another Destiny 2 build video. This is a build based on the Warlock Void 3.0. This is what I would like to call my Venomous Reaper build. A few notable facts about the build is that, for one, it's great for solo play. It's great for crowd control. The synergy is really good, and you can pretty much use this build through most of the content in the game. Outside of maybe like champion content, maybe like like Nightfalls, but that's due to because of the mods that are introduced this season. Once the right mods are introduced throughout one of the seasons, then this build will be even stronger. This is a build that I've been wanting to put together for a while, and thanks to the changes through to some of Warlock's desired armor, I was able to put this build together. So with that being said, let's get into it. Starting with the Void Walker subclass, I'm using Healing Rift, Balance Glide, Pocket Singularity, Vortex Grenade. You can use whatever grenade you want. I just prefer to use the Vortex Grenade in PvE. And I'm using the Void Aspect, Child of the Old Gods, and Feed the Void. Now, the fragments I have is going to be based around melee because you will be using the glaive with this build. So, I have Echo of Exchange, melee final blows grants grenade energy. Echo of Reprisal, final blows when surrounded by combatants grant super energy. Echo of Undermining, your void grenades weaken targets. And Echo of Leeching, melee final blows start health regeneration for you and nearby allies. Now, the exotic you'll be using for this build will be the Necrotic Grips and the Osteo Striga. These are the two that's going to be essential to your build for crowd control. So, starting with the Osteo Striga, this is how I have it built because this weapon can be crafted. I have Arrowhead Break, Tactical Mag, Toxic Overload, landing final blow or multiple precision hits triggers a burst that poisons nearby targets. Short action stock greatly increases handling speed, and the Osteo Catalyst, poison final blows return ammo to the magazine. Next up, I have a crafted Glaive Judgment of Kel'Garath. This is how I have it built with super cool accelerator, accurized rounds, overflow, and enhanced surrounded. Enhanced surrounded gives your weapon gives your glaive a 47% damage boost when you're surrounded by 3 or more targets. That is a lot of damage for this one glaive. And it's an aggressive glaive, so it's gonna do better damage than the regular glaives. And since I think it was season 18, glaives are now working with exotic gauntlets. So that also includes the necrotic grips. As far as deep heavy weapons, use whatever heavy weapon you want. I'm using the Polymera B. Sometimes I use the red herring, or sometimes I use the Terminus Horizon with target lock on it. But you use whatever heavy you want. But I prefer maybe a rocket launcher or a grenade launcher with explosive light because you will be making orbs of light, and explosive light that I know of is pretty much the only way that you can get orbs of light when you're already full on abilities. So starting with the helmet, I have a solar helmet with kinetic siphon, rapid kinetic weapons, final blows create orbs of power. Now, since you're going to be spreading poison throughout the mission, or you'll be spreading poison a lot with your Osteo Striga, this is going to be creating a lot of orbs of power for you. And then I have glaive ammo finder, increases your chance of finding ammo while you have a glaive equipped. You want to make sure that you're able to get plenty of glaive ammo throughout the mission itself. And then you're going to be using elemental ordnance. We're going to be creating wells, so you want to use elemental ordnance to use a grenade to create L's defeating. Defeating a combatant with a grenade spawns an elemental well that matches your subclass energy type. This is going to be your well maker right here. Now, for the gauntlets we're using the necrotic grips, here's the armor perk is Grasp of the Devourer. Damaging combatants, poison them, and dealing increasing damage over time. Defeating a poison combatant spreads the condition. Provides a moderate benefit to the airborne effectiveness stat of all the weapons of sorrow. And yes, that does include the Osteo Striga. And the mods I'm using is Bolstering Detonation and then the High Energy Fire. You can use whatever you want here in this slot, but these are the mods that I chose to use. And then I put High Energy Fire for an extra damage boost when I become charged with light. Now, the change I was talking about is the change that Bungie made it so that some of the gauntlets of the Warlock can now synergize with glaives. So now I have glaives that can produce poison along with the Osteo Striga. So this is going to help with that crowd control, and this is the synergy between those two weapons and the necrotic grips. So that's that's just going to help a whole lot now that you got two weapons to produce poison instead of one. And now, of course, your original charge melee also produces poison. So that's the change I was talking about. As far as the chest piece, I'm using an arch chest piece with glaive reserves and rocket launcher reserves to make sure that I'm able to have as much ammo as possible on both my heavy and my glaive. And then I have elemental charge, become charged with light by picking up an elemental well. If the elemental well's elemental type matches your subclass, you gain 2 stacks of charge with light. So when you create an elemental well with your grenade, when you pick it up, you're gonna become two stacks of charge with light. And then for my boots, I have some void boots with glaive scavenger. Glaives get bonus reserve when picking up ammo used by the glaive. Then I have better already, so that when I pick up an overpower, I can start my health regeneration. And then I have well of tenacity. Picking up a void elemental well reduces the damage you take from combatants for a short time. So when I pick up elemental well, avoid elemental well, I'm going to get a lot of damage reduction when I pick up the well. And I'm also going to get charged with light ×2, which is also going to activate high energy fire. And then my bond, I have a stasis bond with passive aggressive guard. Receive less damage from combatants that are close to you while you are wielding a glaive. So this is going to by my research, passive aggressive guard gives you a 50% damage reduction when you are surrounded by combatants when you have a glaive. And then I have elemental time dilation. Elemental wells that grant you time limited benefits can now stack, increasing the duration of the effect for each copy of the mod you have equipped. So when I pick up a void elemental well, I'm going to get well of tenacity, which is going to give my damage reduction. And this mod here pretty much extends the time of how long the damage reduction lasts. So there's another way to run this build. If this build, there's another way to run this build. If this one is not as comfortable, if you're not comfortable running this one when you try it out, and that is you can switch out Echo of Leeching for Echo of Starvation. Picking up all power grants you Devour. So as you create those, orbs of power, which are Osteo Striga, you when you pick up an orb of power, you're gonna be granted Devour. However, what you will be losing out on is that if for whatever reason you don't have Devour up, when you get these melee final blows with your glaive, you won't be able to trigger any type of health regeneration. So this is kind of a backup. Echo of Leeching is kind of a backup in case I don't have Devour going. I still can get my health regeneration. So that's why I'm using Leeching over Starvation. So that's pretty much how the build works. This is how the build put together. Also, you want to make sure that you want to have your resilience. Whatever you use, whatever piece you have to get your resilience and your recovery as high as possible. You don't have to worry about your discipline because as you are activating Devour and getting melee kills, you're gonna be getting your grenade up pretty fast. So this grenade stat doesn't matter. Doesn't really matter as much. So with that being said, man, let's get into the tips and the do's and don'ts of using this build. Tip number one: grenades are your friends. Now, when you first start an encounter, you really want to make sure you either throw your grenade out or your super, depending on how many enemies is inside the room. I like to aim for the ads so I can go ahead and kill them real quick and get the viral going. And when I have that going, of course, it's going to spawn an elemental well for my damage reduction, and it's going to help me get going pretty much along with my crowd control. So whether if it's a boss encounter, whether if it's just a room full of ads, just like I said, just make sure you either start out with your grenade or your super, whichever one. Usually if it has more than one enemy, more than one yellow bar enemy, then I tend to use my super first to clear out most of the room. So that's the first tip when it comes to using this build. Tip number two: play according to the weapon you're using. So what I mean by that is pretty much like the build is built on being close quarters and crowd control, but you do not always have to be up close. You're going to see in these next few clips that you're going to see me go from using the Osteo Striga. As soon as I get close to those melee enemies, I pull my glaive out and start using my melee. So as you can see, I'm just wiping these guys out with the melee because again, I'm getting my health regeneration from the melee kills and my grenade energy. And like I said, you don't always have to be up close. The submachine gun has just enough range for you to take out multiple enemies, especially with the poison. And I also like to use, when it comes to using my glaive projectile, I like to use my glaive bullets to take out enemy shields. It hits pretty hard among enemy shields, so about maybe like 2 hits, 2 maybe 3 hits, and then you're able to take them out. So that's my second tip for this build. Tip number 3: remember you have a bodyguard. And when it comes to using a glaive, remember you have a melee, a projectile, and a shield. Now your shield is something you want to be using a lot often. It completely negates damage directly to you, but you do still feel splash damage and of course damage from enemies behind you. So when it comes to dealing, when it comes to like boss phases, or dealing with a boss like straight on, you're able to block a whole lot of damage or not take any at all. And when you're able to get the shield up, and you also have your void well of tenacity, which gives you the damage reduction, you pretty much become unkillable. So it's very beneficial that you maintain your shield up at all times. But in order for you to keep your shield up, you have to be landing shots. So you want to make sure that your glaive is filled with projectiles at all times, and that you're able to land a shot anytime that you have your shield up, because each time you land a shot, you're pretty much refilling your shield energy. So that's pretty much my last tip for this build, and I'm gonna give you my final thoughts. So that pretty much covers the build as a whole, man. It's everything you need to know: the mods, the weapons, the tips, the tricks. As my final thoughts, I would not recommend you take this build into any champion content, as there's a lack of mods this season to support this build. There's only a overload submachine gun mod and a overload void grenade mod. So I won't recommend you do that. You can bring this build into group play. You just have to worry about maybe maintaining is less time maintaining your devour and less enemies to create orbs of light with, or elemental wells. But I mean, it's not that big of a deal. And I will also say that this is kind of lax in the DPS department when it comes to boss phases. But your super kind of helps with that, and as long as you got a good heavy, you should be able to put out pretty good damage. You may not be as much, it might not be as much as the rest of the fire team, but you will be able to put out pretty good damage. So I'm gonna leave you guys with some gameplay of the last boss on the mission, Operation Save Shield, on the legendary difficulty. And with that being said, man, Redline out.